So remind us, where exactly are OpenAI's hardware ambitions?
Yeah, so OpenAI is actually, in various ways been working on hardware for quite a while. So in September 2023, we were the first to report that CEO Sam Altman had been meeting with former Apple design chief Jony Ive about, developing some sort of AI hardware device. So that was, over 2 years ago at this point. Then last May, OpenAI acquired the startup that Jony Ive had been working on called IO for close to $6.5 billion. And so that was kind of their way of officially bringing those device efforts in-house. And, since then, the employees that joined OpenAI in that acquisition, plus other OpenAI researchers and Love From, which is Johnny's separate design studio, they've all been working together to create prototypes for this kind of personal AI device that will be coming out. So
And
as
so,
you, Mhm.
oh,
Sorry.
I mean, and so what do we know about the device now? You said in your story, I mean, they're looking to develop kind of like a speaker.
Yeah, so that's the main device that it seems like is going to be coming out sometime in, the next couple years or so. So, basically, this will be a kind of smart speaker that has a camera that can take in, audio and video and kind of see what's going on around it. And that's likely to be the first device that's going to be shipped. It's probably going to be between $200, $300, and at the earliest, it won't be shipped until next February, as we saw from a court filing from one of the leaders working on the device. And as you mentioned, they've also prototyped some other designs, such as smart glasses and a smart lamp, but it's less clear whether those are actually going to be released as kind of official products.
And they've got 200 people working on this thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big effort within OpenAI. Obviously, I think at this point, OpenAI has, thousands of people working there, but this is definitely a very real effort that is going on there.
Okay, so now let's start with the speaker, because I mean the speakers looks like it's the one that it's sort of closest in development. What is the company thinking about differentiation strategy and how this is going to be different from all the other smart speakers that are out there on the market?
Yeah, so I think actually what's interesting is that what kind of makes this speaker different from what I've heard is not necessarily the kind of physical design or what it might look like. And it's more about the kind of software that's powering it and the way that consumers are going to be interacting with it. So, as we wrote in the story this morning, there was a presentation last summer where, leaders from the device team basically told OpenAI employees that this device is going to be able to observe users through video and kind of nudge them towards actions that the device believes will help them achieve their goals. So, a very like kind of silly or like basic example of this could be like you can imagine the device observing the user kind of staying up late the night before like a big presentation, for instance, and nudging the user to go to bed. So obviously that's kind of a bit of a like silly example, but the kind of overall idea here is the device taking a more like proactive approach to its users and influencing the users' lives versus, what we see today with our phones.
Now, I want to ask you about Jony Ive's role in all this. He obviously came in with the IO acquisition. What do we know about how OpenAI's team is working with Jony's team?
Yeah, so the really interesting thing about that is even though OpenAI paid, almost $6.5 billion for IO, Johnny is not actually an official employee at OpenAI. So what he does is he leads his independent design studio, which is called Love From, which is separate from OpenAI. And so he is kind of Love From is kind of the entity that's actually in charge of coming up with the kind of design of the device, like what it's going to look like. Is it going to be a speaker or glasses or a lamp or something else? And so there, he's the one that kind of has like final say and veto power over what the design of the device is going to be like. But interestingly, he's not really kind of, frequently like physically seen in the office, but he's obviously very well known in the hardware space. And people kind of like talk about him like this kind of omnipresent figure where he's always coming up in conversations, even if he's not physically there. And people talk about him kind of saying things like, Johnny would like this, he wouldn't like this. This is what he would say about this sort of design. So he's very much kind of like emotionally present, even if he's not kind of physically present in the office.
And so how do OpenAI's employees feel about this partnership here with this team coming in? I mean, have they been working well together?
Yeah, so I mean, I think overall it does seem like things are going well, but one thing that I, actually predicted last May after the acquisition happened that seems to be coming true is that there are these kind of culture differences between IO employees and OpenAI employees, where Jony and a lot of the leaders that came in through the acquisition are former Apple leaders, and so Apple is kind of known for this very like unique culture where they're very secretive. Like there are these kind of silos between different teams. There's very strict rules around which employees are allowed to know about certain projects or not know about other ones. And they're kind of known for this very like meticulous approach to design where you're moving carefully, you're moving slowly, you're testing like every possible iteration of the design, which, obviously can take a bit longer. And then you kind of compare that to OpenAI's approach, which is very like, kind of typical Silicon Valley startup, move fast, break things, like let's move quickly, let's release models quickly. And you can kind of start to see how there might be some kind of tension there.
So what questions are you trying to get answers to now? I mean, we have this product, we have OpenAI that is building out an entire supply chain, which is something that's very different from building out AGI, although in some ways, I guess, you do have the sort of industrial operations of setting up a data center, partnering with suppliers and stuff like that. So that's one part of this. The other part of this is what the product is actually going to be. And the third part is the people that you mentioned. What are the big reporting questions on your mind right now?
Yeah, so I think right now I'm thinking through a lot of the things that you mentioned. So first, beyond the speaker, what are some of the devices that are going to be coming next? Because it's important to remember that this is going to be a family of devices, not a single device. And, as interesting as a speaker is, like we have speakers today, we have the Alexa, this is something that a lot of people already have in their homes. So I'm curious what's going to come next that maybe might be more unexpected. I think the second thing is what you mentioned around the supply chain and how OpenAI is navigating, finding suppliers for this hardware device, which is something that it doesn't really have a lot of experience with, and how that is intersecting with what's happening at Apple. So, it seems very likely that Apple and OpenAI are kind of going after similar suppliers and folks in the supply chain. What is that leading to? Is that causing issues for them? Is that causing tensions? And then I think just the last thing is like, you know, how the device is going to change the way that consumers interact with AI. So, today a lot of us interact with AI through chatbots, basically, whether that's ChatGPT or Claude or other chatbots that people use. And I've previously reported that, uh, folks at OpenAI want this device to be audio first, so something that we talk to out loud versus typing into our phones or our computers with. So, how is that going to kind of change the way that we're using AI and the way that we think about AI? Is it going to become more like a friend or a companion that you're kind of just, musing out loud to? And what does it mean for AI to kind of work in a more proactive way in our life? Like, is it going to be having more of a impact on what decisions we're making, versus maybe being something that we turn to whenever we have a question? So lots of questions, and I think lots of interesting stories that are coming, related to all these things.
And I think, one thing that I might add that I'm wondering about here is even though we have Jony Ive in the mix, and even though the iPhone, for example, was such a pivotal moment for Apple, I mean, Apple had devices before the iPhone, in the iPod. And, nowadays, I remember when the Vision Pro came out, people talked a lot about, hey, well, Apple's not hoping to make a dent in their sales with the Vision Pro. You're not thinking about it the right way. This is actually more of just, it's a little bit of a proof of concept, a little bit to see, if people buy into the idea of using it, how they use it, maybe even some data collection. And, if I look at Meta's device strategy, it's somewhat similar. I mean, those are selling quite well, but still, even though they're playing the long game here that they want the device, I don't think anyone made the bet that the first device that they drop is going to be the game-changing device. And so I almost feel a little bit like everyone's waiting for the first device, but I don't think it's going to be the first device that actually is the big, OpenAI moment that once again they take over the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, I think that's super true, and I think there is this kind of balance between wanting to come out of the gate with a bang, but also, you know, wanting to kind of like test the waters a little bit with consumers and see how they feel about this device. So I agree. I'm sure their first device will be really interesting, and obviously I'm very excited for it, but I think I'm almost more excited to see what the second and third devices are going to be.
Great. Well, Steph, I want to thank you for coming on. That is Stephanie Palazzolo, our AI reporter here at The Information.